Hi everyone, I'm Susan Kent, and today I'll be talking with you about Ivan Pavlov's theories of behavioral and social learning. You're probably thinking, isn't that the guy that did all of the research with the dogs and the bells that cause them to salivate? Yep, you're right. And now you're probably trying to figure out how exactly that's going to have anything to do with your classroom or best practices or how you could possibly use it in any way whatsoever. Well, we're going to get to that, but first off, let's start off with the objectives and what you'll be learning, hopefully, in this class. The learning objectives for this lesson are to be able to define unconditioned stimulus, unconditioned response, neutral stimulus, conditioned stimulus, conditioned response, and to be able to find ways to apply behavioral and social learning theories to best practices in your classroom. Ivan Pavlov was born in 1849 and he died in 1936. He abandoned his family's hopes that he would one day become a priest, and instead he pursued science. He received his doctoral degree from the University of St. Petersburg in 1897. He was a physiologist and he studied the digestion and blood circulation. He actually discovered what he called the conditioned reflex and classical conditioning by accident while conducting other experiments. Interestingly enough, Pavlov distrusted the study of psychiatry. Pavlov actually discovered classical conditioning by accident. He was studying the digestive processes of dogs and the role that saliva played in that process when he noticed that when the handler brought the dogs their food, that they began producing saliva before they actually even received their food. He didn't know if they began producing saliva because of the noise that the machines that distributed the food made, or if it was because of the way the handlers were dressed in a lab coat. But he did realize the importance of this discovery, and he decided to do further research. I will change over to an illustration that will help us look at the process and also be able to look at the vocabulary words so that we can see the way that the conditioning process worked and also the research that he went through to get to the different steps. If you look at this illustration, it goes through the steps that were used to get the results that Pavlov was interested in. Number one shows the before conditioning responses. The food is the unconditioned stimulus. The response is an unconditioned response, which was the salivation in the dogs. Number two shows the before conditioning. The bell is the neutral stimulus, and when the bell is rung, there's a no conditioned response, and there's no salivation in the dog. During conditioning, the bell is rung and the food is introduced to the dog at the same time, and salivation occurs, which is the unconditioned response. Number four is the after conditioning. If the bell is rung, which is the conditioned stimulus, the dog salivates, which is the conditioned response. So if you notice in step number two, it was a neutral stimulus and there was no conditioned response. However, after training, in step number three, when the bell was rung and food was introduced at the same time, the dog now has the unconditioned response. So Pavlov proved that by doing that repeatedly during conditioning, you would then get the result that you were looking for by ringing the bell, but not actually introducing the food. And so that would occur time after time. Well, now we see how Pavlov used his discovery to train dogs, but what about people? Now we're going to watch a short clip from The Big Bang Theory where Sheldon tries to build a better girlfriend for Leonard. Let's watch as he conditions Penny and see if he's successful in his endeavors.
What's this cartoon called again?
Oshikuru Demon Samurai.
And it's not a cartoon, it's anime.
Anime. You know, I knew a girl in high school named Anime. Anna Mae Fletcher. She was born with one nostril. Then she had this bad nose job and basically wound up with three.
You're here a lot now.
Oh, am I talking too much? I'm sorry. Zip.
Thank you. Chocolate?
Yes, please. hold on. Let me take this in the hall. You'll never guess who they got to replace me with.
Okay. I know what you're doing.
Really?
Yes. You're using chocolates as positive reinforcement for what you consider correct behavior.
Very good. Chocolate?
No, I don't want... Sheldon, you can't train my girlfriend like a lab rat.
Actually, it turns out I can.
Well, you shouldn't.
There's just no pleasing you, is there, Leonard? You weren't happy with my previous approach to dealing with her, so I decided to employ operant conditioning techniques, building on the works of Thorndike and B.F. Skinner. Yet by this time next week, I believe I can have her jumping out of a pool, balancing a beach ball on her nose.
No, this has to stop now.
I'm not suggesting we really make her jump out of a pool. I thought the bazinga was implied. I'm just tweaking her personality, just sanding off the rough edges, if you will.
No, you're not sanding Penny.
Are you saying that I am forbidden from applying a harmless, scientifically valid protocol that will make our lives better?
Yes, you're forbidden.
Bad, Leonard.
We saw how Sheldon used chocolate to condition Penny every time he felt like she had an appropriate response for a better girlfriend. He associated the better behavior with chocolate so that his hope was she would continue with the better behavior, and then she would associate that with the chocolate and the feeling that she got from the chocolate. I don't know about you, but I think that we would probably get some complaints if we as teachers tried to do something like that every single time our students had something that we tried to associate with that. So let's look at something that we might be able to implement in our classrooms and to be able to associate this behavior with something, an outcome that we would like to see in our classrooms. This graphic shows a way that you could implement classical conditioning into your classroom. Before conditioning, if you instruct your class to quiet down, they will probably quiet down. However, if you simply clap your hands 3 times, they might just look at you strangely, but they might not quiet down. But during conditioning, if you clap your hands 3 times and you instruct your class to quiet down, they will quiet down and they will begin to associate clapping your hands 3 times with quieting down. After conditioning, if you clap your hands 3 times, they now associate that with the instructions of quieting down, and now they will begin to be quiet. Therefore, your class has now been conditioned and classically conditioned to quiet down after they've heard you clap your hands 3 times. Now we'll go over the words from the beginning of the lesson and review the definitions that we learned throughout this lesson. Unconditioned stimulus, unconditioned response, neutral stimulus, conditioned stimulus, conditioned response. Now that we've looked at Pavlov's theories and we've looked at ways that it can be used in Big Bang Theory with people, and we've looked at ways that it could be implemented in a classroom, depending on what grade that you teach for the blog response, can you think of a way that you could implement Pavlov's theories into your classroom? Or perhaps can you think of a way that you're already implementing this theory into your classroom? Another question I have is, one of Pavlov's criticisms that he had for his own work was that if you introduce the neutral stimuli, for instance the bell, too frequently without the unconditional stimuli, the food, that you will not continue to see the unconditional response. So he was just saying that if you don't pair the bell and the food often enough, that you won't continue to see the salivation. So if you do something in your classroom in order to, you clap your hands 3 times and you get your students are silent, will you continue to see the outcome? If you do something like this in your classroom presently, is it successful? If you figure out something that you could do in your classroom, do you think it will continue to be successful? And if so, do you have some sort of reward system the neutral stimuli that will cause it to continue to be successful. So hope you enjoyed it, and if it works for you, please let us know. We'd love to hear about it. Thank you.